Hey, what's up, guys? Ronin Man here. In the morning here, getting the gym workout in the gym. I'm just in the library right now. Thought I had an idea and I wanted to talk about it. And the difference between healthy self-reflection and guilt and unhealthy. And it's very easy to confuse the two when you're talking to somebody. Um, One of the girls I was with had enormous guilt about something she had done to her brother. And when I say guilt, like a lot of guilt, I mean like pathological. She was this topic came up over the 5 months we were together, probably more than 200 times, and often followed by crying or almost like catatonic behavior. So I knew she was sincere. She felt very extremely guilty about something she had done in childhood to her younger brother. And my first reaction, the way that she played it, she played it quite well to me, was, she felt guilty about it. So I assumed, that she was ready to be honest with whatever she had done, because she had never mentioned what it was specifically, right? I knew that she felt extremely, extremely pathologically guilty about whatever she had done. And that is unusual for me because it's normal to have guilt, right? I know when I went to, for example, when I went to 12-step groups, one of my biggest we write what's called a fifth step, where you write down everything you did wrong. And one of the things that I wrote in my first fifth step back in 1987 was that I had mistreated my brother one day, and I felt really guilty about it. And so my sponsor, the guy who was helping me through the steps, he had me, write down what I had done. And what I had done is I had humiliated him in front of his friend. No, sorry, his friend wasn't there. It was me and my friend. And my friend he was kind of it's not his fault, but he was kind of a cruel guy. He would kind of like make fun of anybody he could make fun of. And I played along. See, that wasn't me. I didn't do that. That wasn't my normal behavior to make fun of people that way. But this time I did, and I take responsibility. I totally did it. I like grabbed him and I was like holding him like a baby because I was stronger than him, right? And I was like rocking him, and he was a year younger than me. We were making fun of him for being younger, and we didn't really do that much bad stuff. But for some reason, I felt extremely guilty about it because it was something that it's not my kind of thing. Like it was wrong, basically. It was fucking wrong, right? And I felt bad about it. And so when I told my sponsor about it, he said, well, you have to go make amends. So I went to my brother and I was really serious. I said, hey, I need to talk to you about something, and how do you have time, or when would you have time? He said, he gave me a time. And so we met, and I told him, I said, do you remember that time with me and Jeff, what we did back in 8th grade? And he said, he's like, yeah, I think I remember that. And I said, I really feel terrible about the way I treated you that day, and I just don't feel, I made amends. And he looked at me and he kind of was like, he's like, honestly, I hardly remember that scene. Like, it wasn't really such a big deal like you're saying. And I was like, woo, like, thank God, because I had been carrying that around. Like, I had done something terrible to him, and I really felt, seriously, I felt really bad about it. Like, it was like one of the things I felt the most guilty, because I love my brother, right? Me and him were super close. And anything that breaks that trust makes me feel bad, right? He's one of the people I can rely on. I trust in my life, and I didn't want to mistreat him or fucking be an idiot, right? So I made amends, and afterwards I felt really good. Actually, I felt so guilty, to be honest. I got to tell you, I felt so guilty that when he originally said it was no big deal, I almost didn't believe him. Like, I was like, no, come on, tell me, like, what did I do? Did it really hurt you? I was really like, because I felt so bad about it, right? And, after, this was in 87, and now over the years we've become very close again, and I realized that it really was no big deal. He was totally serious. Like, he didn't even remember it, really. And he was just being nice, saying he remembered it. He didn't remember it. And so it was all in my mind. But either way, that was very important for me to let it out, because if I wouldn't have let that out, in my mind, I was making it into a very big thing. So part of psychological wellness is, of course, that you make amends for real things, but it's also that you kind of confront things you did that you think were so bad, and then find out sometimes that they weren't so bad, right? That's part of it too, is that sometimes we misinterpret things, or we just feel guilty about certain things and we don't about others. And often, now here's the other lesson for me, is that often when someone makes amends to me for something they did wrong, often it doesn't bother me, but there's something else they did that really fucking bothered me. And when they make amends, a friend of mine, he made amends to me for something, and I said, he was like just going on and blabbering on, and I said, listen, I got to tell you right now that was not a big deal. His name was Tracy, and I said, but this other thing you did really fucking hurt me, like actually. And he was like, he wasn't ready for it. He was like, I'm making amends for this other thing, not that, basically. I was like, dude, that other thing you shouldn't make amends for. This is this other thing. And to his credit, he did say, okay, I get it. That hurt you. Okay, why did that hurt you? What happened? What had happened is we had started a band together, and I had paid for the musical instruments, like $2,600, plus I had bought the big generator for our band, and then he had kicked me out, and they had stole my equipment. And it was like two things. One, they had kicked me out, and two, they had stole the equipment. And eventually he did pay me back years later, after a period of time, I can't remember how long, but it was like, I felt like really abandoned, and I wasn't a good drummer, so you know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh my God, I was a great drummer. I sucked, so I can understand why they kicked me out, but the way they did it was not nice, and we were going to go do a gig, and then I got kicked out on the way to the gig, and also one of the guys said, you suck. I was like, that didn't feel good, I was like, and it was true, I did suck, but it was like, you're kicking me out, you're stealing my money, like that's not a good time to tell me that, right? So either way, I realized that often the things we feel bad about aren't so big, but there are so, you have to look at the person who was hurt, right? Sometimes they'll tell you, my gosh, you really did hurt me, and then you have to listen. If you want to make amends in life, if you want to get better in life, you got to start listening to people, basically. Stop fucking thinking you know everything and start listening to people, because they're going to tell you how they feel. Because if you harm them anyway, right, you're gonna ask. They're the experts, right? Did you harm them or not? You might have like tried to harm somebody and actually helped them. They might say thank you. You know what I mean? You don't know what's going to happen. So you try your best, and you see what you listen very carefully to the people, right? So this girl, she had this enormous guilt about something she had done to her brother. And what was very unusual, which I should have, realized the difference between me and her, was that she never, ever told me what it was. She would not tell me what she had done to him. And that is a bad sign, guys. A very, very bad sign. When something is a very big thing in someone's life, where enough that they bring it up hundreds of times and cry and get catatonic. And actually, she had given him $50,000 to start his business. And she told me, because if she felt guilty. She felt so guilty about whatever she had done that she had never, that she had given him $50,000 to get his business started. And I was like, whoa, whatever she did was pretty bad, I'm guessing, right? Was like, what was it? Like, I was like, okay, I'm ready to work with you on this. Like, I've also worked through I've done a lot of self-help on myself. I'm also, I sponsor a lot of people. I help a lot of people in 12-step groups. So for me, working through these kind of things is not a big deal. And I don't look down on anybody for whatever they did. I mean, I've been in AA meetings where guys have been in accidents and drunk accidents and killed a whole family of 3, like that this type of stuff happens in the real world. And, you got to decide, like, can you help somebody through this, or are you going to just let them hang themselves, right? I think that there's always hope, and you can always work with somebody in almost all cases, especially if they didn't mean to do it, right? So either way, but see, the thing is you have to look carefully. Like, this girl was not being open about it. She did not want to make amends. Like, giving somebody $50,000 is not the same as admitting what you did. Sometimes, I'll tell you something, for me in particular, and I think a lot of people, when somebody hurts me, they can't pay me off. Money does not buy off Ronin man. Like, you can't fuck me over and then say, oh, here's some money. I have wealthy people in my family, very, very wealthy people. And also, I'm not wealthy, but I have people around me that are wealthy. And if they tried to give me money for hurting me, I would be like, no fucking way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you did something wrong, like, admit it and change your life. Like, that's what I really want. I want someone to honestly tell me what they did to me. I want them to listen to me and how it hurt me. Like, well, how did it affect me? Maybe it affected me in a lot of ways. At some point, I'm going to talk about my father. my relationship with my father, and that's something that the rabbit hole goes very deep for me on. But okay, so in giving someone $50,000 and crying and talking about it hundreds of times over and over, this is a sign that actually whatever she did to him was probably very, very bad, right? And the fact that, so that's one thing, is it's a sign that it's a pretty significant thing, whatever she did. This is not a normal, like I made him eat a mud pie, or you know what I mean, I stole his lunch money, or this is something that, and this woman is in her mid-30s, right? And the guy is in his 30s too. So we're talking, whatever this was significant, and she was not even able to tell me. I think she thought that I would look worse or down on her. And also at this point too, she knew that I was a very forgiving person who had also overcome a lot of things in my life. So this is another bad sign. You know what I mean? Like if you're dealing with a judgmental person, you don't want to give away your cards because you know they're going to use it against you. But she knew me very well by this point, and she knew that I would not use things against her. In fact, she knew that I would probably look up to her or see her in a better light for having dealt with this very difficult thing and being honest about what she had done, and then also thinking of ways that she can make real amends, right, for whatever this thing that she did is. So what I'm saying is you have to be very careful about the people around you, because when she said that she did something bad to him and she felt bad about it, this was something that I was like, oh great, you know, she's like, this is great, you know, like she's like wants to help improve herself, right? And she wants to be honest with the things she did wrong, because at this point she was doing things to me that I thought were pretty bad, and I was like, this is a good sign that she's willing to self-reflect and also to make amends for things that she had done that were wrong. But this was not true. Okay, so it was like a false flag. She was not willing to be honest, even with me, not to mention with him. So you have to look. Don't stop, like when someone said something, don't just put it into a box like, okay, she's obviously like trying her best to make amends. No, giving someone money is not making amends. No, not admitting something and not being open about something and not changing your behavior and listening to the person, like listening to their pain, having them explain how this affected them. I know one of my ex-girlfriends, her sister, basically went to her dad's car dealership at night when they were just closing up, and he was like having, cleaning up and everything. And she went to the safe and she stole all the money in the safe. And then her and her boyfriend went around Japan and just spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars in hotels and Gucci bags. And that caused my girlfriend at the time to not be able to go to university. So the things that we do can have significant effects. And now she's in her mid-30s. And she never went to university because her sister stole the money from her parents. So, the things that we do can have significant effect on other people's lives. So we need to listen to people and say, hey, how did this affect you? Because my ex-girlfriend would say, well, now I'm not college educated, because you took that money. And it makes me, maybe it makes her feel less than sometimes in social situations, even though she rationally knows that she didn't do anything wrong, right? Rational mind, emotional mind, these are very different things, and talking about things that we feel is important. It's being honest about how we feel. We feel complicated things that don't make sense sometimes, and that's okay. It's okay. And being honest with how you feel and how things affected you also is very cathartic and very good for the victim. So when someone makes amends, it doesn't fix it, but seeing that they're sincere about wanting to change and that they're being honest, and that they're listening to you gives enormous satisfaction to the person who was harmed. It really makes the person feel like, really like there's hope. You know what I mean? Like people are good. Like in the universe, like things are good. And that it's safe universe. And that you know what I mean? Like it also gives them motivation to go out and improve their lives. And so if they did anything wrong, when someone makes amends to me, like really sincerely, and admits they're wrong and makes amends, it encourages me to go out and say, you know what, I was dishonest about this fucking thing, and I'm gonna go make amends right now to this person, right? Because one good thing leads to another, and it's the same thing as one bad thing leads to another too. So that's why you want to be doing things that are good for yourself and good for the people that you love and your friends, because this will encourage them to also go and improve their lives. Like you having the guts to make amends to something could be the catalyst that would make your friends say, you know what, fuck it, man. I was wrong about this back in the day, and I'm gonna be fucking open about it, and I'm gonna listen to the pain I caused, and I'm gonna fucking make amends if I have to pay them back or whatever, make a payment plan or whatever it is that I need to do to make to do my best to make amends. And sometimes you can't make amends. Like I made amends one time. I went to a guy's grave in Newport Beach. I went to his grave and I made amends to him. His name was Scott Harvey. I went and talked to him, and I said, hey, I'm sorry about what I did. I didn't understand at the time what was going on with you, Scott. And I sat there and I made amends and I cried. It was beautiful. And I couldn't make amends to him in person because he was gone. But, there's always ways that you can make amends. And there's always some solution for the inner turmoil that you have. But what is really a red flag is when somebody has something that they're almost pathological about, but they're not even willing to, not to make amends, they're not even willing to say it out loud, because they know, usually what it is they know what they did is like really bad, right? Like it's fucking evil, right? And so they don't want to admit that they can be evil, like downright fucking evil. And that's why and so the inner mind is that the person would think actually that they actually are evil, right? And that's why they did it. And that's why they can't make amends. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where the person does not get better, right? And also continues doing things because they never confronted the things they did before and the wreckage that they caused, the pain that they caused. They never listened. They just swept it under the rug and tried to make fake amends. Fake amends is like money, or like if you have a child that you're neglecting, some wealthy parents send them to an expensive school where they buy them an expensive bicycle. But that's not what the kid needs. The kid needs love. The kid needs attention. The kid needs time, right? The kid needs caring, right? That's what we need as human beings. Money is not really what we're not born with this as money as like a fix-all, do-all. It's not. But at the same time, it's so easy to become a better person, because if you confront what you did before, it makes it easier to not do those things again. And if you feel that you're evil because you did something, like I felt kind of evil with my brother. I honestly did at the time. And when I got it out, I realized, oh my gosh, it wasn't such a big deal. And also, I'll tell you something else I realized about this, which took me years to realize about my brother, was I had been, that day I had roughed up my brother a bit, and also I had started getting in fights. It took me years to remember, and a friend, when I was like, because sometimes it's not so easy to forgive yourself, right? Like I used to get in fights a lot when I was in junior high. I would get in fights. And I felt like I was a bad person because I was beating up people that it just didn't make any sense. Like they hadn't really done anything that bad to me. You know what I mean? It was like I wasn't that bad, but it was just like I felt bad about it, right? Well, what happened was when I was talking to somebody who was listening to me, they said, tell me when your father, I want to listen to the timeline here, when he started beating you up. When did your father drunk come home and start beating you up in blackouts? And my face dropped because I realized he started beating me up like a week before the first time I got in a fight, like a real fight, And I look back and he's like, he didn't even need to say anything else because he'd already nailed it. But he goes, do you think there's a chance that your dad beating you up as an adult man, drunk in a blackout, beating up a 13-year-old boy, defenseless boy, with a belt and fists of an adult and legs of an adult man, do you think that could have caused you to be frustrated or angry? And I was like, well, of course. He's like, well, do you think that a week later when you got in a fight with somebody, there could be a connection between the fact that an adult man beat the shit out of you and then you went to school and got in a fight? And I was like, I started crying because I was like, oh my gosh, I had never put it together. I thought that I had been bad on my own. I had never realized that I had been beaten just before I got into fights. Like it was like an exact replica. I mean, it was like when you hit your knee with that point where your knee kicks up, And as soon as I stood up to my dad and he stopped beating me, I stopped getting in fights. That's the other thing, the end of the story. I stopped getting in fights after that because I stood up to my dad. I flipped him over. He tried to hit me, like he was hitting me like brutally for no reason. He was drunk and I was like, fuck him. I flipped him over on his ground when I was 14. And he looked at me like, holy shit, because I was strong, And he never hit me again. And also, coincidentally, I never got in another fight again. Guess what? There's a connection, right? So sometimes by dealing with these things, you can forgive yourself. And also sometimes, if you're lucky, like I was, you can actually see how these things worked. And I was able to see myself, and I was also able to see what had happened to me and how that led to my behavior. Now, I don't blame it on my father. I'm not saying that he beat me up and so I don't have any responsibility. No, I have responsibility for all those guys that I got in fights with, for sure. It was in reaction to him. But I mean, at the same time, it's very important for me to remember that when he started beating me, I started beating others. And when he stopped beating me, I stopped beating others. That's an important connection to make, because that's very, very relevant to my case, right? So you have to, looking at these things can actually make beautiful changes in your life. And the thing is that when you confront your behavior, this girl who would never admit what she had done, I'm guessing the reason why is because probably what happened was she was probably abused by another person. She was abused by somebody, her father, her mother, her brothers, one of their friends. Somebody abused her, and then she abused somebody else. Now, I don't know what kind of abuse it was, and this is not a accusation. I just know that there was something that definitely 100% she felt extremely, extremely pathologically guilty about, and was desperately in her adult life trying to make amends for, without being honest about it, without confronting what she actually did. And I think what happens is these situations is, like I said, often what happens is everything becomes unhinged because to make amends for yourself, you have to start to look at your life at the time and what was going on with you, what happened to you. And that often requires a lot more painful stuff where you realize, wait a second, this adult figure in my life abused me or did this to me, and I haven't been able to even admit that, So it's like the onion. You start to peel the onion, and you start to, the layers come off, and that is a painful thing. And it also requires you to rethink your childhood, and also to start to look at how this has affected your adult life and how you can change. And you have to take responsibility. If you keep getting into relationships with a certain type of woman, this is one thing I really don't like about a lot of MGTOWs, is they'll say, oh, this woman did this, woman did this, and another woman did the same thing and the same thing. It's like any intelligent person is going to say, wait a second, not all women do those exact same things that you're talking about, and you chose those women. So it's not your fault, but I mean, it's like there's probably some childhood scar, there's some kind of wound, there's something that's going on with you that you're picking this type of individual. And the way to stop this from happening is to fix the wound yourself and to confront the difficult situation, and then to stop making those same choices so that you don't pick the same kind of woman every time, right? If you find yourself over and over doing the same thing, and if you honestly look at yourself, you have to say to yourself, wait a second, is everybody in the world like the people I'm picking? Is every woman the same? Or am I in kind of a Groundhog Day here, picking a type of woman based on something that I am needy for or looking for or missing in my life or trying to heal or something, right? What am I searching for? Why am I picking the same type of person over and over and over? And now I don't want to diminish what people do to us and the responsibility that they have, because this is obviously I would say the greater evil. But if you want to change your life, you have to say, what can I change? What can I control in my life? Well, what you can control is you can control yourself. And it's not easy, okay? It's not like something you just make a fucking decision. It's like, oh, I'll never do that again. I fucking understand that. No, you have to get in there deep and you got to grind it out, figure out what you were really doing, why you were doing it, what originally caused it. And then once you understand it, you do everything you need to do to fix it. And a lot of this shit's on YouTube. That's a beautiful thing. You can find a lot of healing on YouTube. And I think a lot of MGTOWs have a lot of things to work with. And the good thing is that if you want to improve your life, it's sometimes sticky. It's not always simple. Improving your life is not always just kicking the girl out of your house or getting divorced. It requires change. It requires facing difficult things in your past. And then it requires watching some touchy-feely videos that maybe you're not so stoked on, And it requires watching some videos that don't make any sense, because you're going to see some people that will just be, they won't have a good solution, right? You have to listen to it. It requires frustration and time to fix yourself. And now the good thing is that I believe that fixing yourself is the greatest journey that you can go on. And it's the most deepest journey, and it's the most real journey that a man can go on. And I think that is something that I highly recommend. Once you stop being super busy and slave to a woman, you get enormous free time, and your mind becomes clean like a desk. You got a desk without a stack of papers on it. This is when you have your time where you can start to confront these more difficult things in your life and start to fix them, so that you don't recreate the same thing over and over and over again. But what you don't want to do, if you have a seriously pathological thing where you did something that's really, really, like, basically fucking evil, you might need professional help to get through this one. But the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to flail around, and you don't want to. I personally think that one of the most important things that you can do is to let the cat out of the bag. I really do. I think it's like admitting what you did. I think that girl that I was dating before, I think the number one thing she could do is start telling people what she did, and taking it out of the bag. Exactly. Step by step. What did you do? Right? Exactly. No excuses. The facts. I did this. I did that on this day. I remember doing this. I remember doing this. I remember doing this. I did this. He reacted like this. I did this. These type of things is the beginning of working on something, right? So often what I do, here's my little trick. If you want to change yourself, this is my wonderful golden trick I found. I'm telling you, this is fucking self-help gold here, baby, for me. I really think this is like, I discovered this on my own, and I think it sounds simple, but I'm telling you, try it. What I do is I will go, let's say I'm going to a meeting or I'm talking to friends. I will tell them, I will say, look guys, I'm going to tell you something now, and I'm not ready to deal with it. I don't want any advice. I don't want anybody to come up to me and say anything about this afterwards. I want you to say nothing. I'm going to admit something, and I'm not ready to change. I don't have any answers, and I don't want to hear any answers, right? So I'm going to tell you something that I am not ready to deal with, okay? And do not confront me with this, because I might never be ready, okay? So you might have to forget this. And people start laughing, because it's a beautiful thing what you're doing, because what you're doing is you're allowing the space that you can let the cat out of the bag about something you did, or some situation you're in that's embarrassing. And then I'll tell the situation, and I'm telling you, it's a miracle. Because what will happen is everybody will respect you, because they understand what you're doing. They're like, that's kind of cool. Like, that guy is admitting something that he's way not ready to deal with. And what often happens for me, once I admit it in that way, and I also protect myself so that they don't come up to me and say anything. And I won't let them. I was like, no way. But actually, you know what? If you do it in the right way, like a loving way, you'd be surprised. People are in awe, because they see you ready to deal with a very painful, difficult thing. And they'll be like actually what people think is like, God damn, I wish I could do that. Like, I wish I could deal with my real issues. Like, this guy has balls, man. Like, he's fucking dealing with something, and he's also protecting himself at the same time. And what usually happens for me is I'm ready to deal with it that same day, because I let the cat out of the bag. Nobody said a fucking thing. I listened to my own voice admit that I had done this, or I was in this embarrassing situation. And after I did that, it was like, I don't know, it just takes the power out of it. And I can start to see it from the outside, and I start to think, okay, all right, I know what I need to do. I know where I need to start. And often I'll say to my friend, like, say later in the day, I'll say something like, well, maybe I'm ready to hear a little bit. And they'll be like, okay, well, how much are you ready? Are you ready to start, or you're not ready? Because they'll start to realize that this is, if you go too fast, you're going to shut down, and it's not going to work, right? And also that you're not going to be in a good headspace to deal with it. You need to be in a good headspace to deal with difficult things, right? And this is what allows you to protect yourself, but also to confront. Make no mistake, I'm talking about confronting big time shit that most people never have the balls to deal with. And you can fucking deal with it like a goddamn professional ninja, man. And you will get these things out of your way. You will have less baggage in your life, and you will move on from issues that most people never have the balls to confront. And it gives you a lightness in your life because you move past them. You deal with them. You're honest with them. You get professional help. Like from your friends, and also you might get professional help. You start to look at YouTube. You start reading because now you've gotten over that main barrier of like, I can't start. This is truly the case where the first step is the journey. Confronting what like the situation is the big deal. Okay, the rest, once it's out there, the solution is not that complicated. Okay, and then what you need to do to make amends is usually not all that complicated. Finding the original wound or what caused it is usually a little bit difficult, but it's not that complicated. I'll tell you what the difficult part is, and that's admitting that you did something or you're in an embarrassing situation. That is almost impossible for most people. But if you try my little trick here, this will get you over that hump. And once you're over that hump, you're probably going to be hungry to deal with it, And also you've learned to protect yourself when you're dealing with this stuff, because you don't need somebody coming in and giving you simple answers. If this was simple, you would have dealt with this fucking thing 20 years ago, right? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's simple to other people. It's not simple to you. That's the thing, okay? That's why you're having trouble with it, right? So this is a beautiful thing about how you can fix your life and how you can overcome extremely difficult things and create a peace in your mind and an honesty and openness. And if you see friends or, relatives or lovers that are not willing to change and not willing to admit stuff, you need to start thinking like really, you got to think, at least you have to think worst case scenario, like what actually did they do? Like if they can't admit it and they're 35, like honestly, this might have been pretty bad. Like sometimes you need to protect yourself from bad people. Like honestly, sometimes they're telling you that they're bad. Honestly, that they murdered somebody, right? Or they sexually molested somebody, right? Or they did something that's almost unforgivable, right? So you need to like realize that there are bad people in the fucking world and they have guilt. So sometimes they'll let it out by doing something like this where they're not telling the truth about what they did. And they're just trying to get your kind of like general, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Oh, you're going to get through this. But the truth is they're not telling you what it is. And that can be very strategic if they really did something awful. And so you need to be prepared that I'm not saying that is the case. You don't know these things. I'm just saying that is a very realistic possibility, is that they actually know that it was so bad that you will look down on them and you might even leave them and you might not trust them ever again, right? And they might be arrested, right? That's why they're not saying it, right? That everything is possible. So you need to realize that some people will use a bastardized version of this in order to get a fake sympathy when actually they shouldn't be getting sympathy. And I'll tell you something one of my sponsors said in AA in the very beginning, who helped me the most. I went to him one day, and I'll end with the story. I said to Scott Harvey, the guy who I made amends to in Newport at his grave. Scott said to me, I said, I feel guilty. And you know what he said? He goes, I thought he was going to, okay, let me say what I thought he was going to say. I thought he was going to say, oh, don't feel guilty, there's no point in feeling guilty, what happened, blah, blah, blah. And you know what he said? He goes, that's because you're probably fucking guilty. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't realize I told on myself. I was guilty. I did something wrong. So don't let yourself off the hook. If you're feeling guilty, you're probably fucking guilty. You probably did something bad. You probably did something evil and wrong. Okay? And admitting that you did something wrong and bad and hurt another person is an important part of becoming a human being. You might have done something wrong and you have to confront it. Don't think of yourself as a good person. You're not a good person, and you're not a bad person. You're a person, okay? And you did things, and you're going to confront those things, and you're going to do your best to get over those things. And if you have a mental disorder or some kind of thing that you can't control, that's something that you can't. It's you know what I mean? It's something you're born with. You got to be honest with that. But a lot of times, most of us are pretty normal. We can overcome things. We can deal with things, right? So if you're feeling guilty, you're probably guilty. And what my sponsor didn't say is if you work with it, if you're honest about it, you're probably going to have a better life because you won't do the things that made you feel guilty next time, because you confronted it. And part of it is like just realizing, I'll end on this actually, is when you make amends to someone. So let's say I go to my brother and I tell him, I was wrong, or I pay somebody money back, which I did to one person. I had taken something, I went back and gave them money, I made amends, and you know what? They never looked at me the same again. And so next time that I fucking had the chance to do what I did, guess what I thought in my mind? I thought of the situation with my friend Lance, who never trusted me again after I did this. It wasn't a big thing, but it was like he didn't trust me. And I tell you something, that fucking shook me up. I thought, wait a second, don't do these things anymore. Don't do these things, because you don't know how people are going to react. They might not forgive you. They might not be nice about it. They might be mean and discard you. So you need to be careful. And so this is what all this stuff does. Is what it does is, one, it cleans up the wreckage. Two, you dig down deep and find out where it came from, and give yourself peace. But also in the future, you're going to realize once you make amends for something, once you confront it and you listen to the person's pain and you pay them the money back and you do the painful things you need to make amends, and you're honest with yourself and you're open about the things you did, and you look like an idiot, you look like an asshole. Once you go through that, you're not going to want to do it again. And so when you're confronted with the opportunity to do it again, you're going to be like, no way. Because I know myself, I'm going to have to go through this whole goddamn thing again. And I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to do the bad thing. And that's when you fixed yourself. You've inoculated yourself against that behavior the next time. And you don't have to deal with the whole goddamn thing. All that wasted energy, all that hurt friendship, all that wasted time, gone. And your mind is clear like a desk. And you can go and do the things you need to do to make a better business, better friendships, better love life, better travel, better study, better sleep, better workouts, fucking everything better, because you feel better, right? And your life is better. So that's what you can do. You can't be perfect, but you can work on these things. All right, guys, thanks for listening. And I hope that was helpful. This is a very, for me, very meaningful, very deep stuff here. So please comment below if you had something. You don't have to admit it here, but if you're dealing with something, I really don't look down on you for dealing with difficult things, but I do look down on you if you're not able to confront something that you did that really was bad. The reason why I look down on you is because I know, and I don't trust you, because I know you're going to do it again. Whatever evil thing you did, if you can't face it, guess what you're going to do? The same thing or worse next time, because you never had to pay the price. You never had to pay the price, man. You got away scot-free. You fucking got away scot-free, and everybody thinks you're so nice. Guess what? You're not, and you're going to do it again. And that's what you want to avoid, guys. Do not do that and confront it, because anything you did, you can deal with. You're a good person in the end. So fucking prove it. Prove it. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys have a great day.